Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this video for LDR 607 is about how to be successful in writing your second paper, the Cultural Intelligence CQ Synthesis and Development Plan. As you can see on the screen, I've got the directions and the grading rubric for the paper, and I'm going to give you an example of what the paper should look like using a paper submitted by a student who's taken the class in a previous chapter. Of course, I'm keeping the name off of it and anonymous to protect the guilty, and I'll talk about some things, what the student did well, and where his opportunities are to write an A-level paper. So, as you know, as a doctoral student, you know a lot of things, but you are not considered an expert. And so our papers in a doctoral program are developed to help you gain mastery in different aspects of the courses that you're taking by giving you a reason to dive into the scholarly peer-reviewed literature. If you haven't seen my video on what peer-reviewed sources are, I highly recommend it. But the bottom line is in the library database, you click the scholarly journals, and then you use Boolean terms for each of the different topics to get a better picture of it. And you don't have to read the whole scholarly papers that you're pulling up, but you do have to have a good idea what the authors, the experts who are researching those topics related to the paper that you're writing, are saying. So we synthesize in our own words, not using direct quotes, but paraphrasing in our own words to help readers of our paper understand what the experts are saying. And so this paper takes your CQ assessment to the next level. In the last paper, you wrote about what your CQ results were. This paper really is about helping you understand what the experts are saying that you can do to grow and maintain your cultural intelligence level. You know, just like any muscle that you don't use on a regular basis, you become weaker. I took Spanish in second grade, believe it or not. And I know a little bit of Spanish, but not enough to get me by if I were to travel to a Spanish-speaking country. So if I wanted to be successful as I engage with people who speak Spanish more effectively, I should practice buying a course on Spanish perhaps and developing that. And of course, as you look into languages, there are certain nuances in each of the languages that helps us understand a little more about their culture. Maybe the culture is showing an emphasis of respect to people of different genders or different age groups, or a passion for the arts, you know. So some of those nuances will come out as things are said, and the way things are said, and the words that are chosen to be said in each of the different cultures. And of course, culture is one of those dimensions, or language is one of those dimensions of culture, that the more you understand the language, the better you understand what's important to the culture. And of course, it is absolutely a better way, if you're learning the language of a particular culture, you can better engage with people of that culture to get a better understanding of their culture, what's important to them, who they are, and be able to compare and contrast your experiences. Because as Covey wisely tells us, we see the world as we are, not as it necessarily is. And that's an important framework to really be thinking about. And that's why this cultural intelligence model is so important. We assume people are like us, but we bring our culture with us into our daily conversations. And if we want to benefit from what other people have to offer, we need to make time to better understand and have the drive, of course, to better understand them and have a plan of action to better understand them so that we can continue to grow. And if we truly believe that we can learn to be better people and understand how things work from other people's perspectives, the stronger we can be. One of my favorite models is the Gerhardt model, and it's essentially got 4 different quadrants. But essentially it says we don't always know what we don't know. We have a blind spot, according to the theorists. And we need other people to help us see things differently. And so those are some concepts that I encourage you to explore as you create an outline and write this paper. So let's take a look at what the expectations of this paper are a little more in depth. So in our program, you're going to be writing your dissertation in APA 7th edition unless it changes. And so I'll be talking about APA writing, and of course I've shared other videos on APA writing, but you'll notice that this paper requires you to write in APA 7th edition. And so I'm going to be making comments about that as well as comments about content along the way as I show you a sample paper. In any paper that you have, the title of the paper should be the title that is explained in the rubric. The level 1 headings, those are bold, centered, capitalized major words. Those should be represented by the things that are explained. For instance, this B, a brief summary of personal cultural intelligence results. That should be the second paragraph. And that should have a heading on it that is personal cultural intelligence results. That's what I would have as my level 1 heading. And then a paragraph under that saying this section discusses my cultural intelligence assessment results. I'll be explaining, I am explaining in present tense why, how significant each of those scores are and what they mean. And then your level 2 heading. It would be drive. According to Livermore 2018, cultural intelligence drive is this. My results of my cultural intelligence drive with these 4 subcategories are this, this, and this. According to Johnson 2019, these results are low because of this. So I'm just making stuff on the cuff. But that's if you look at really well-written scholarly papers, they take an idea, they introduce, here's what we're going to talk about in each of the paragraphs. Let's expound on what I said I'm going to talk about in the first sentence with examples and scholarly citations and paraphrasing from what the experts say and examples. And then a summary. So it's kind of like making a sandwich. The first part of the paragraph introduces what this paragraph is about. The second sentence talks about, with examples and scholarly citations, what the experts are saying, and then you're giving examples. So each paragraph really should be no less than 3 sentences. Every paragraph should have at least 1 scholarly in-text citation in it, generally speaking, in doctoral level papers. And you're giving specific examples, and you're finding sources that support your notions, and you're synthesizing the literature. It's even better when if you're looking up what the experts are saying about cultural intelligence drive, and those, of course, your Boolean terms, cultural intelligence drive development is probably what I'd be using. And find out what the experts are saying. How do you develop your drive? What is drive? Why is it important? What are the experts saying are some activities that have been proven to help people develop their drive? So for this second section that we've called personal cultural intelligent results, you should have level 2 headings, one for drive, one for knowledge, one for strategy, and one for action. And then each of those sections should have at least a paragraph that's supported by scholarly literature that talks about, that breaks down what your cultural intelligent results are and why it matters. And of course, the rubric says without copying and pasting from your first assignment. So just look at your results, have it on your desk as you're typing it out, and then dive into the literature and ask the literature what it says about drive. Why is it important? How are people developing it and why? And so you don't have to change the word. I'm going to show you an example. But then in section C, your third level 1 heading should be Cultural Intelligence Development Plan. And so under that level 1 heading, I would have a paragraph that explains, this section explains how to develop each of the 4 different dimensions of cultural intelligence, starting with drive, then knowledge, then strategy, and action. According to Livermore, developing your cultural intelligence is beneficial to you because of these specific reasons, and your organization for these specific reasons. Citation. And then go into, put your table down. And so I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So then finally, conclusion. Conclusion, it's so amazing. I see so many papers that have conclusion as a level 2 heading. Conclusion is a major section, and the conclusion should summarize key ideas that were expounded upon in your paper. So if someone were to read the introduction, they should know what the paper is going to be about, or what your paper is about, and motivate them to go and read on. The conclusion should summarize some key ideas about what the paper was about. So if the reader goes to the conclusion, they should go, oh, wow, I want to really understand more about this. I better go back and read what the paper says. So, and of course, we are looking for 6 to 8 pages of content, not including your cover page or your reference pages. Double spaced, and your references, by the way, should be double spaced and reverse indented. Take a look at the samples I provided in the APA videos. It should be Times New Roman font and 12 points. Your margins, of course, are 1 inch. So do note that this paper can and should be written in first person. And I know someone out there started the rumor that it needs to be written in third person, but that can't always be done, and it's not always the right things to do. And so we call that philosophy called amorphisms. So let's take a look at the paper, and of course you can pause your screen and rewind to take a look at it. So here is page 1. I've deleted the student's name to protect the guilty, but your name should be here. You notice the heading of the paper, or the title of the paper, is in bold. It's the only thing that's in bold. There's a page number in the top right hand corner, and there is no running head in APA 7th edition. After your name, this is all double spaced, and this is 3/4 up on your page. The school is listed here in a university, the class number, your professor's name, and the date. So that's an APA, and of course you put your name here. On to page 2. This abstracts aren't required, but abstracts are a good scholarly habit to get into. So you should ask your professor whether or not you need an abstract. But if you do an abstract, remember that the abstract is left justified. It is not indented. It has a level 1 heading, and of course the level 1 heading is bold with the major and centered, and the major word is capitalized. And the purpose of the abstract is to basically summarize what the paper is about, so that if people are searching through lots of papers, they could read the abstract and see, is this something that I want to read? Will this be beneficial to me? Is this what I'm looking for? So you pause it and see if the author did this. I think the author did a fine job. It's not the best abstract that I've ever seen, but essentially it does exactly that. So you can pause this and read it if you want to. All right, so here's the thing that some people miss. Some people put introduction over the first paragraph. Stop it. That is not APA 7th for student papers. The requirement for APA 7th student papers is you put the title of your paper over this. And this is close, but the title of this paper is Cultural Intelligence Synthesis and Development Plan. That's what should be over the first heading. It is assumed in APA 7 that this first paragraph is an introduction, and the introduction is written in present terms. Do not write, this paper will do this, because the paper is already written when people are reading it. So this paper emphasizes or explores my cultural intelligence results and gives examples supported by the literature on how to grow each of the 4 major dimensions of cultural intelligence. So tell people what the paper is about and give them a reason to be motivated to read on. Generally speaking, you need to support each of your paragraphs with the literature. So you might say, according to Livermore, cultural intelligence has been found to increase productivity and employee morale by a proven 90%, citation. So whatever that information is, so go into the literature, become an expert as you write your papers by finding out what the experts are saying about the topics, and break it down, unpack it with the literature. The outline is given to you right here in the directions. Just use each of these letters as your level 1 headings. And of course, don't use the word introduction. Use the title of the paper, and just know that in APA 7th edition, it's assumed that that first paragraph is the introduction. So the introduction is indented. You could read my comments here as you go along. You want to be supporting ideas. You are not an expert in this topic. You become more of an expert as you dive into the literature about. So I would be using things, developing cultural intelligence, developing cultural intelligence drive as my key words when I'm diving into the scholarly literature. So this is a good summary. Let's see if this author did it right. So they gave the introduction and then summary of personal cultural intelligence results. I would make that even shorter. I would just call it personal intelligence assessment results, or cultural intelligence results, perhaps. But that should be your level 1 heading for the very second one, because it's the second direction. So again, introduce what this section is about. The author shared, this author should have broken down the subdimensions a little bit more. Talked about what they are in his own words. And then he should have, read my comments, he should talk about what the experts say about drive. Why is drive important? Why is knowledge important? But one of the things that this author should have done as they go further down is had a level 2 heading. Level 2 headings are left justified and bold with the main words capitalized. Drive as a level 2 heading, and then talked about what his drive score was and the subdimensions and why it's significant. And then another level, a paragraph, you introduce the idea, support it with ideas and examples, summarize and tie into the next sentence. Remember to make the sandwiches. You've watched in my other videos, right? So then a subheading that says strategy, and talk about my CQ strategy results are this, my sub-dimension scores are this. This is why it's significant, supported by the scholarly literature. So you want to be unpacking this, your results, supporting it with the literature, and you're building a scaffolding for the rest of your paper if you think about what you're really doing, and you're supporting it with what the experts are saying. So you can read through and you read my comments about what this author had said. And I'll tell you right now, this was not an A paper, because you want to practice being an expert. You want to practice being an APA writer, and you're not going to graduate from the program until you do, because your dissertation committee is expecting the same thing. So practice writing in a scholarly way. Unpack the idea. Lay a foundation. Support each of the paragraphs. Do the research to support your ideas and the insights of the published experts in each paragraph. But make it make sense. Read your paper out loud and ask yourself that question. How well did I unpack this? How well did I support each paragraph? How well did I give examples to help readers understand what my plan is and why this is important, and what the experts have said about why that matters or how something works? So you're unpacking it, and you're developing it, and you're supporting things in your own words. You notice there's not a lot of direct quotes. You should be avoiding using direct quotes. The only time you want to be using direct quotes in a graduate level paper is when the author is noted, is notable, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If he says something that's important word for word, put that word for word. But it's even better if you're paraphrasing, saying Dr. King's vision of having a dream where people of all color of skin are working together in unity to build a better America. That's even better. You see what I did? I paraphrased what an expert has said. So that's your goal, is to read the paper, put the paper aside, and then ask yourself, what did the experts say about this as it relates to this topic? How can I unpack that in my own words and give credit to the author along the way? So tell us what you're going to tell us in each paragraph. Summarize what that is with examples and scholarly in-text citations, and then tell us what you told us and tie into the next section. So some people do better than that, but good writing takes time. Read what you've written and ask yourself, how well did I unpack this? How well did I support my ideas with examples? Knowing that I'm not an expert, wanting to become an expert, did I really do a good job of showing what the experts have said about this, why it's important, where it happened, the who, what, where, when, and why questions really help unpack concepts a little bit, and you're paraphrasing and citing properly. And so some people do citations terrible. They put periods before a citation, which is wrong. I've showed you that in another sample paper, but you can do in-text citations along the way, and check the announcement sections. You'll notice that if you need a refresher on how to do in-text citations, I've got a video on that. So again, here's the table. I really think it's a good idea for each of the different dimensions of cultural intelligence, drive, knowledge, strategy, and action, that you have like four or five different things that you're going to do to develop each of the different dimensions. This student only did 2, and he was really vague in some of these things. And so you notice what I like about this, focusing on the thing, is he has a table that's got drive, his action plan, and then the timeline. So be as specific as possible. Some things are ongoing. Like you might say, for knowledge, visit an Italian restaurant every third Monday of the month with my spouse. And, make it your goal and expound on that later outside of this table in the next paragraphs to talk about what the literature says about visiting places that make ethnic foods, and talk about how you want to talk with the owners of the restaurant and get to know them better. Ask specific questions, maybe have questions prepared to talk about their culture and their land and their dances and the seasoning that went into it, and why are you talking with your hands, or observing things that are important and that are different, and so those are the kinds of things, that, as you're unpacking it, maybe you're looking at hand gestures or body language in the literature, and being explained what your plan is to understand how to do these different things and why they're important later on in the paragraph. So, but in your action plan, I like the idea, coming back to this, is, having a table that's got, 3 different columns in it, your timeline. The timeline could be ongoing, but it'd be even better if you said be as specific as possible. By the end of February, I will have did this specific action, and so, this was not a great paper, and I guess if you'd kind of take a look at that, you should ask yourself, why isn't this a great paper? But the more specifics related to the area of development, I do like the idea that he emphasized what these things are, why they matter. Okay, so development plan research support. So let's look at this. So this section D, synthesize the current scholarly literature with personal assessment results, defend why these strategies were selected, how they will enable achievement and goals. So let's see how well the author of this paper did that. So introduce what this section is. And this section is to talk about this table. Why did he choose each of these different things? And again, he should have a subheading. This first paragraph under this level 1 should introduce what this section is, and then he should have a subheading that says drive, and level 2 subheading that says strategy, and in level 2 heading that it's got all the 4 different action, and so under those, talk about what the authors that he's found have said. Why is this important? Why should you, what's this about? And what can you do to have meaningful professional and personal development that will help you grow and maintain each of these dimensions of CQ, and why is it an ongoing thing? If you don't use it, you lose it. I can't speak Spanish very well because I haven't practiced speaking Spanish, but I suspect that if I make friends with someone who speaks Spanish and buy a book on speaking Spanish and tapes or video classes on speaking Spanish, and then engage with someone, I probably could get to know somebody, get to speak Spanish a little bit better, and at the same time develop a relationship with that person, understand his or her culture a little bit better. So again, you can pause the video. I didn't mean to make this a 30-minute video, but the goal is, how well did you support your ideas in each of the sections? Having level 1, level 2 headings is really important. Check out my video on level 2 headings. Being able to have at least 1 or 2, It's better the more you have, you know, because you're saying essentially we're talking about CQ strategy, and there are lots of authors that say lots of different things about how to develop your CQ strategy and what's important in there, you know, and so how well did you do that? Then finally, with your conclusion, remember the conclusions should, if someone were just to read the conclusion, they should have a good idea about what your whole paper was about. So be a little more in depth about expounding on what your paper really was about, and make sure that your level 1 heading that says conclusion is bold and centered, not left justified, and your paragraph is indented, and it's essentially connected. This is only on another page because it's the next paragraph, but you've got regular indentations, not double extra indentations. And then finally, as you're looking at your references, references is a level 1 heading. It's bold, it's centered. You notice this ends with a period. You notice how there is a space between the ampersand and no space between the period and the comma. They use authors' last names and initials. So this author, Andreessen, first initial was M, could be Matt or Martha. This professor, Frederick or Francis Bergdolt, you know, and so notice the spacing here. So do check out my other videos. Publication titles are in italics. Titles of the paper are not in italics. Notice the DOI HTTP address at the end of where these were found in the databases. So anyway, make sure you support it. Good papers have more than one resource for each of the different sections. You'll see that there's a minimum of 6 to 8, 8 peer-reviewed minimally. The more the better. So do review before you do the paper, the syllabus, and after the paper. Do read your paper out loud and ask yourself, how well did I introduce this section? How well did I introduce this paragraph? Am I using headings properly to show how each of these sections is supported? And how well did I support each of the paragraphs with scholarly in-text citations and specific examples? I hope this video helps. I'm sorry that it's 30 minutes long. I want to see everybody do well. I hate seeing people who miss the mark. Practice being an excellent doctoral student by practicing these skills. Your dissertation committee will love you when you get to that stage. Keep your eye on the prize and don't hesitate to contact me because your success is important to me. Have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.